All right, today we're going to break down something super powerful but also really intuitive, Bayesian classification.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. We're going to start with a problem that you and I deal with every single day, making predictions.
I mean, have you ever wondered, how does your email know what's spam? It's pretty amazing, right? All this tech we use every day, it's constantly sorting, categorizing, and making decisions when it doesn't have all the facts. From spam filters to medical diagnoses, at the end of the day, it's all about making a really good, educated guess.
And here's the thing, it's not magic. It's actually a super logical process. It's all about learning from new information. You see, a system starts with a kind of initial hunch, a belief. And then, as it gets more and more data, it updates that belief, making it stronger and more accurate. And that right there, that's the core idea we're digging into today.
So, how do we actually put this idea into practice? Well, we're going to look at the really elegant principle that powers this whole thing. It's called Bayes' theorem.
Now, don't let the word theorem scare you. What's so cool about this is that it basically turns a complex math formula into a simple three-part recipe. A recipe for updating what you believe. It's like a formal rule book for how we should think when we learn something new.
And here's how that recipe works. First, you start with what's called a prior. That's just your initial guess before you see any evidence. Like what's the general chance that any email is spam? Then you look at the likelihood. So how likely are you to see certain evidence, like the words buy cheap, if the email actually is spam? And finally, you combine those two to get your posterior. That's your new updated belief. It's the probability that this specific email is spam, now that you've seen those words.
So the goal here is pretty simple. Find the most likely category. The classifier isn't just spitting out one answer. Nope. It's actually calculating a score for every possible option, spam versus not spam. And then it just picks the one with the highest score. It's basically a little competition between probabilities, and the highest one wins.
But there's a catch. Trying to calculate the likelihood of all the evidence at once can get crazy complicated, which leads us to a really clever shortcut that makes this whole thing actually work in the real world.
I mean, think about it. A real spam email doesn't just have one suspicious word, it might have dozens. So what's the probability of seeing buy, cheap, discount, and now all in the same email? Calculating that is really, really hard. And that's where the theory needs a bit of a practical hack.
And here it is. It's called the naive assumption. To make things simple, we just pretend that all the pieces of evidence are totally independent of each other. So for a spam filter, that means we treat the word buy and the word cheap as two separate, unrelated clues. We know they're not, right? They often show up together. But by pretending they are, we can just multiply their individual probabilities, and that makes the math 1,000,000 times easier.
And this is the secret sauce. This assumption is naive because, yeah, it's rarely perfectly true in the real world. But, and this is a big but, it works surprisingly well in practice. It's a useful lie, a simplification that's good enough to power tons of real-world applications.
Okay, that's a lot of theory. Let's make this real. We're going to walk through a super simple example step by step to see exactly how this works. So here's our training data. It's a little data set about whether or not to play golf. We've got 14 days worth of info here, showing the weather outlook, how windy it was, and then the final decision. Did someone play golf or not? This is what our little machine is going to learn from.
Step 1, we figure out our priors. This is our starting point. We just look at the data and count. So out of 14 total days, people played golf on 9 of them. That's about 64% of the time. People did not play on 5 days. So right off the bat, before we even look at the weather, our best guess is, yeah, they're probably going to play golf.
Okay, step 2 is calculating the likelihoods for the weather. But, Houston, we have a problem. Look at this. When the outlook was overcast, how many times did people not play? 0. Out of 5 no-play days, none of them were overcast. That gives us a probability of 0.
Now, why is that a big deal? Well, remember, we have to multiply all these probabilities together to get our final score. And what happens when you multiply anything by 0? The whole thing becomes 0. This one little 0 would mean our model could never, ever predict no play on an overcast day. Even if there was a hurricane, it just completely breaks the calculation.
Luckily, there's a simple fix for this, and it's called Laplace smoothing. You can think of it like this. We're just going to add 1 to every single count. It's like giving every possible outcome a tiny little head start. This ensures that no probability can ever be exactly 0.
which saves our model from being totally thrown off by something it just hasn't seen in its limited data.
All right, now that we've fixed our zero problem with smoothing, we're ready for the real test. Let's try to predict what's going to happen on a brand new day, one we haven't seen before. The forecast is sunny with strong wind. So, to golf or not to golf?
Okay, here's where it all comes together. We're going to calculate two final scores, one for play yes and one for play no. For the yes score, we take the prior probability of playing and multiply it by the likelihood of it being sunny on a yes day, and then multiply that by the likelihood of it being strong wind on a yes day. We do the exact same thing for the no score. It's like we're piling up the evidence for each side to see which one is more convincing.
And the results are in. The final score for no comes out to about 0.1020. The score for yes is only 0.0585. So the no score is clearly higher. The evidence is stronger for not playing. And that's our prediction. On a sunny day with strong wind, the model says, no golf today.
So that's how it works. But why is this simple method so popular? Let's zoom out a bit and talk about the real superpowers of this whole Bayesian approach.
Okay, so here's why naive Bayes is just so awesome. First, it doesn't just give you a yes or no answer. It gives you the probabilities. You know how confident it is. It's also incredibly fast to train, even with tons of data. And it's really easy to interpret. You can literally look inside and see how much each feature contributed to the final decision. It's great with lots of features, like in text analysis, and it often works really well even if you don't have a massive amount of training data. That's a ton of advantages packed into one simple idea.
And if you put it head-to-head with other big-name classifiers like an SVM, you really see where it shines. An SVM might give you a score, but naive Bayes gives you a real probability. Training an SVM on huge datasets can take forever. Naive Bayes is super fast. And while an SVM can feel like a black box, naive Bayes is transparent, so it really has its own unique place in the toolkit.
So when you think about it, this is more than just a machine learning algorithm. It's a whole philosophy. If even our simple computer models can have an initial belief and then update it based on new evidence, it kind of makes you think, right? It's a great reminder for all of us. Start with what you think you know, but always be ready to change your mind when the facts come in.